A very good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and a warm welcome to each and every one of you joining us for today's LinkedIn Live. Every week, I have the pleasure of having a meaningful conversation and breaking bread virtually with authors, speakers, and C suite professionals. Today is no exception. It gives me great pleasure and privilege to have a meaningful conversation today with Shobha Nihalani joining us from Hong Kong whilst I'm here in Dubai. She's recently launched a brand new book, and we're going to learn more about that and obviously her journey. Please join me in giving a warm welcome to Shobha. Welcome, Shobha.
Thank you, Gautam. It's wonderful to be here and to be part of your wonderful platform to share my thoughts about my book, about self-esteem, and about your journey as well as an author. And it's really great connecting. And I want to wish your dad a happy birthday because I believe it's his birthday today. So my best wishes to him. He's an inspiring gentleman, definitely with all his affirmations that he shares. I'm quite inspired by him. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shobha. It's one of the reasons when we first connected some time back, and we found that obviously you'd known my
Yeah,
dad from a previous time in your life, and that was
exactly.
really that was
Yeah,
always added even more pleasure to be connected with you. And thank you for your time today. And looking forward to learning more about your journey over the years, and in particularly more recently with the launch of your new book.
thank you
Um,
so much. Thank you.
One question I like to ask all my guests is, what is your why? There's something that drives each one of us to get up every morning, make a difference, add value in people's lives, whether it's through the content of your book, whether it's in the career path that you have. So I'd love to learn, Shobha, what is your why? What's your purpose of life?
That's a big question, Gautam, and quite deep. But if I were to say my why, it's to be true to myself. Okay, in every direction and choice and decision that I made in life, it's about being true to what I've chosen to do. And typically, like as a housewife, as a mother, as a daughter-in-law, I've worked around that to build a career as an author as well. So in that way, you could say my why is always understanding my inner self, understanding what is it intuitively that I would like to do. And writing has always been my dream, therefore my why has started out with writing, and now it's moved into a direction where I have a purpose, I have a goal where I want to share with everyone that self esteem is so relevant in our lives and so powerful in the sense that it affects the choices and decisions we make at every moment of our waking moment to the time we go to bed. We have this inner self talk. So the why comes from understanding that I have a journey, and my journey is to be authentic, to be sincere in sharing what I would like to share with everybody in terms of awareness.
Fantastic, Shobha. Thank you so much. One thing I take away from what you just shared now is that each one of us has multiple roles. I mean, you would have played the role of a daughter, a mom, an author, an entrepreneur, amongst many other roles you're playing. And whatever role that may be, personally or professionally, one's self esteem is absolutely at the core of that. And we need to sort of take care of ourselves because we can only give others what we have inside us,
Correct.
which leads me to my next question. What is self-esteem?
So, when I personally try to understand the word self esteem, obviously I broke it down. It's an estimation of oneself. So, then when I went and read and did some research, we discovered that the definition is an opinion of oneself. And then, as you go deeper, it is not just an opinion of yourself, it is an ability, an attitude of acceptance, self acceptance, and non judgment of oneself and others. And then when I went a little bit more deeper, then I realized also that what lies beneath in so many of our issues, which relates to stress, anxiety, and our sometimes inability to deal with everyday, issues, is this belief that we are not enough. And it's not even about not good enough or not bad enough or not, it's just not enough. you see people who are so successful and seem to have it all, but still they are constantly striving and they're constantly feeling that it's not enough. So for me, I would say self-esteem is this unshakable inner strength, that it's sort of like a conviction and a certainty that we are enough. And when we are enough, we can do anything we want in our lives, because there's no fear of judgment. There's inner critic, but we can deal with the inner critic. There is no fear of failure, because a lot of times we fear failure. We don't attempt new activities or tasks because we feel that, oh, people are going to judge us, or what if I make a mistake, and then what will happen. There's so much self doubt in that situation. So I've shared a lot of aspects of self esteem. It's also an internal, it's external, because a lot of our life we live in terms of human interaction we have. And now with our society that's greater access to the world due to technology, we are interacting on a larger cultural platform, on a social networking sites. And in
Right.
that sense, our self-esteem also gets affected by externals. So in terms of our appearance, our gender, age, job title, there's a lot of issues that can affect us in that sense.
Again, with every answer, my mind runs to so many triggers. I mean, one is, what kind of self talk are we having with ourselves each and every day? That would have a direct correlation to our self esteem. What are the stories we're telling ourselves? Who are the people we're spending time with personally and professionally? One of the great things I learned from my dad, as you may know, is that the three things that are most important is the people you spend time with. Do they uplift you? Do they encourage you? Do they inspire you? Help you
Mhm.
be the best version of yourself? Or are they negative, toxic, um, you know, and affecting your self-esteem? So
Correct.
your self-talk and the people you spend time with would have a direct correlation, I believe, to one's self-esteem. And as you rightly said in one of your sort of sharings that you had, is that we may see someone from the outside as hugely successful, but what's the story behind the story? Because each of one of
Exactly.
us is asking ourselves certain questions, and obviously we have different experiences, different reference points, which our internal body language, our internal conversations are affecting us personally and professionally. So I think this is a really very deep subject, and something very important for each one of us.
Mhm.
In your new book, and I want to congratulate you on Reboot, Reflect, and Revive. It's an absolute amazing book that I recommend, both for teenagers, parents, educators out there, and even the business corporate leaders out there, because the self-esteem, whether you're a parent for your children or you're a corporate leader for your teams, do tell us more about your book, and perhaps a couple of highlights that would be of value to the audiences who are with us today.
So I would like to share, first of all, that I'm not a psychologist or a mental health professional, but I've written this book from my own personal journey in experiencing low self-esteem, and then delving into this topic, trying to understand it. So I read a lot about it. I've done some research. I've interviewed mental health experts, coaches, and amazing, inspiring people who've shared their stories on how they've faced issues right from childhood to adulthood to being successful corporate professionals and struggling with low self esteem, and how they've discovered it and learned to overcome it. So when we tend to engage in negative self-talk, which I will give you an example, when my book, I'm an author of 11 books now. So what has happened in as my fifth and sixth book were published, I constantly felt that even though it was published by big publishing houses like Penguin and Hachette, I still felt internally that why was I not congratulating myself? Why was I not celebrating with that energy, that joy, that, oh wow, I've achieved so much? I was constantly engaging in negative self-talk, that no, this is not enough, I have to go on and write another book, I have to do better, I have to do even, do more, be more. And I wasn't really satisfied with where I was in my phase in life, because I love to write, but I wasn't internalizing the joy of it. So in that sense, if you would look at it, from what I've read and researched from different people, there is this word called imposter syndrome. Now, an imposter syndrome happens when you have succeeded and you've done a lot and you've achieved a lot, and yet you feel you're not good enough. It means that you will not internalize praise. You can't, even if somebody compliments you, you'll say something like, "Oh, it was luck, it was destiny. Oh, I just had a great team, and that therefore things worked out." It's like difficulty in accepting praise. So, in this book, I've covered areas for corporate professionals, for parents, for Gen Zs, our and millennials, and our age group. I've covered self-esteem, the effects of self-esteem as a result of social media, conditioning from childhood. Sometimes parents inadvertently will compare their child with somebody else, and that results in the child feeling that they're not good enough. So, a lot of the times, as adults in the workplace, we take that internalized comparisons that we discovered in childhood, or we faced in childhood, and then we become this individual in adulthood, and dealing with issues in the workplace or in relationships or in society, and not being able to adapt, because we constantly feeling that we are being judged negatively, or there's inner critic going on, or we are constantly expecting somebody to say something negative about us. So we live in that sort of dread. And in that sense, there's more that's been shared about it, where then we get this the fright and flight response, and then we release all the cortisol and the stress hormones, which leads us to anxiety, depression, and low motivation. So there's a lot of mental health is also affects us physically. Now, this is all whatever I'm sharing with you is based on books I've read and research that I've done and have collected and put it in this book. So there's a lot of material there, and if you just let me talk, I'll just keep going. But please ask a question. Gautam, I can't hear you.
Really appreciate what you're sharing, Shobha. And when it comes to mental health and wellness, it's something that has really come of light now more than ever. I think the last 12 to 18 months, it's always been something that's been present, but from my experience, it's not something that's been spoken about so openly. We've
Yeah.
had many celebrities globally, be it Hollywood, be it Bollywood, be it corporate leaders, where anxiety, stress, depression, self doubt, all of these have come out and people have now spoken in the open. Once they've spoken in the open, it's suddenly been accepted as this is something that does exist, something that was just not brought to a conscious level in an open forum. Having said that, now that it is out in the open, from a corporate perspective, I would say obviously leaders are realizing that this takes place. They've even created departments to respond with an open door policy that if you're experiencing anxiety, stress, depression for whatever reason, then do come and share that so that we can help you sort of find peace and find a way to reframe this difficult time you're going through. So I'm sure by reading your book, and obviously those interested in coaching experiences for their senior leaders could connect with you. Your book is available online, I believe, and again in all leading bookstores both in India and Asia.
Yes, that's right. It's available online on Amazon and other platforms, and as well as in bookshops.
Great. I mean, when it comes to the virtual world, which has been the last 12 to 18 months, it's been a very lonely time for senior leaders, and even more lonely. When you work virtually, you're literally with your immediate family. Especially if I take India, where 6 months last year, 6 months this year, one was in a
Hmm.
strict lockdown.
Yeah.
Now, the self-esteem, anxiety, stress, which is already a challenge, it's omnipresent. I think, as I said, it became even more highlighted in these times. Any insights you could share in experiences or um, actionable suggestions that you could make that people who are going through this sort of difficulty, that you could recommend that they could look at solutions?
So, in terms of solutions, where self-esteem is concerned, is where I can share that it's more about an attitude of acceptance. We are facing these times, and they are challenging times. People are in close proximity to each other because they are working from home. There are children who are hyper energetic, who need attention as well. There are stressed out parents and who are trying to manage and juggle the time between work and dealing with a home environment. It is challenging, no doubt. I would imagine that having this positive mental attitude is what is so important. Waking up in the morning, maybe with a simple smile on your face, and knowing, yes, there's going to be a challenging day, but at least you can face it if you have the right attitude. And frankly, it's proactive. It's easier to say that, well, you don't know what we are going through. Well, I agree. People will say, well, you don't know what I'm going through. But the point is that, yes, I don't know what you're going through, but it is a chance to examine your inner self, to reflect on what is happening within you, so that you can take that proactive action to change. And usually it is what most leaders and outstanding speakers say, that it is having awareness of what's going on inside you, so that you can either express it in a way that doesn't hurt somebody else's feelings, or go in a quiet place, calm down, and then have a conversation with anybody. The point is not to spread that negative attitude around you. There might be a sense of bitterness, there might be resentment. Oh, I'm doing so much, you're not doing enough, or whatever it is. That there will be a crowding around in the home. But this is the time where we can use our knowledge, we can use our wisdom and awareness, experience, and become better versions of ourselves. I mean, this is a challenge, no doubt, but this is the time to face it and to actually, come to terms with it and say, yes, I have to change, or I have to accept, or I have to understand. Somebody else is going to be different. I have to change my attitude. I cannot change anyone else's. So in the workplace, in a corporate workplace, I'll share an example. There was one particular coach who I interviewed, and she said that usually what happens, there's a tendency in the corporate world to project a vibe of invincibility. Like, no one likes to use the word weaknesses, but prefer to use words like developmental to define an organization's weak spot. So the point here is, everybody's hiding that side of them that's vulnerable. Everybody wants to show, oh, they are, perfect and living perfect lives, or doing great things and achieving great things. But it's okay to falter. It's okay to have a moment of weakness. It's okay to cry. It's okay to go in a corner and scream. It's okay. It's like that kind of expression is required in, even in sharing with children. Like, children are allowed to express themselves. I mean, that's the way they will discover what is their abilities, their tendencies, and understanding of, as they grow up, and their interaction with their parents. So it's a journey that each individually has to take themselves and realize for themselves. And
Fantastic.
I
Thank
see,
you.
I see an interesting question here by Mr. Menon, who says self confidence precedes self esteem, or vice versa. Good question, Mr. Menon. What I discovered from my research is that self confidence is a component of self esteem, and self confidence is when you have a skill set where you're good at something. Say, for example, you're good at playing tennis, but it doesn't mean that you are good at maths. So you have confidence in your athletic skills, but maybe not in your academic skills. But all of it together, encompassing, affect your self esteem can be affected. So self confidence is a part of your self esteem.
Fantastic, 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 Shobha. In fact, I just want to take a moment to acknowledge some of the people viewing. We have Deepa Kori said, "Well said, Shobha."
Thank you,
And,
Deepa.
good point. And then someone's obviously read your book, Ira, and says, "Amazing book." So they have
Thank you,
someone read.
Ira. She's all about self love, and so it works very well with self esteem. So thank you, Ira.
Fantastic, fantastic. So
Thank
good
you,
to see some
Deepa.
interaction on the chat as well. The one thing I'd like to touch upon, is parents. So obviously we talk of what should parents be aware of, and I'd love to hear your insights in that, because really whatever we can do for our children as parents, I think it really starts there. Obviously, the corporate world is something that is important, and we've touched upon that. But I'd like to hear some of your insights in terms of your experience for parents, what you'd like to share with them.
So as far as when we are born, and babies, when you see them how they interact with the world and they learn how to adapt to the world, you don't see them having lacking self-esteem. They exactly know what they want and what they don't want. And when they become toddlers, their favorite word is no. No, I don't want this. No, I don't want that. Okay,
Like
so
a
they have
default.
a so they have a very healthy sense of self. Now, knowing that as children we've had this understanding of ourselves, there's been no fear of judgment. If we don't want something, we say no. We don't need to people please, whether it's a grandparent or an elder. We will say no if we don't want something. A child will say no if they don't want something. But that's where, growing up, we have to adapt to a society. So we are so parents tend to discipline their children, teach them, the right way of living a good life, giving them direction, and children look up to their parents, right? So when they look up to their parents for because they set an example, like parents are an example in how they behave, what kind of language they use in the house, how they interact with people. Children are watching and picking up those little points. But if they see their, for example, if they see their mother looking in the mirror and saying, "Oh, I wish I was thinner," "Oh, I wish I was taller," "Oh, this doesn't look right on me," then a child tends to see that and say, "Oh, I need to criticize myself. I need to look in the mirror and say I'm not good enough or something's not right about me." So as we grow older, we start developing this fear of judgment. We acquire, we tend to fear people rejecting us, and that feeling is what really affects self esteem. When you are rejected by somebody, then you add to that fire and tend to reject yourself. You say, "Oh, I'm not good enough, I'm not this, I'm not that, that's why that person rejected me." So it just piles on over the years, and then it internalizes, and then we follow this as a belief and we become conditioned. So, as parents, my suggestion or what I've read is the right way, right approach is that we must allow our children to express themselves. To because children have, some are extroverts, some are introverts. They all have their unique characteristics, their talents, their style of expression. We just allow them to express themselves and then guide them in that direction. The point is not to instill fear that they feel that they cannot share anymore with the parents, and then that leads to a breakdown of communication between parent and child. So the main thing is to maintain communication and complete presence. So it's not like we are looking at our phone or talking on the phone and then interacting with the child. It has to be like complete attention, because we pick up on body language. A child may be bullied at school, but they're not going to come home and tell their parents they're being bullied, because it's that fear that they have a friends circle in school. They don't want to be caught out as squealer. But um, but in terms of at home, parents can be approachable. That's the main thing, that a child is having a fear or issue, they can approach the parents, so allowing them to express themselves and guiding them in a way that if they fail in anything, so they don't get an A but they get an B in any subject, it's okay. It's just a kind of reality check that, look, not everybody is going to get an A, but it's okay. You did well. You tried your best. You can try harder. And then the other part is not to compare them with other children, because then they feel less than, and they grow up with that feeling of that I'm not good enough. And then social media adds to that, exasperates the situation, where we look on social media. A lot of people are showing the best selves, perfect selves, and then we fall into that trap of comparisons. So I think parents have a lot on their plate. I mean, there's no tool book, there's no guidebook for parents. I think we just adapt as we go along. I think we all experience that, same as I
Fantastic.
had as well.
Great. No, thanks, Shobha. Some really valuable nuggets you shared there. And the social media part towards the end of what you just shared is one of the chapters in your book, which I really enjoyed reading, because to me, social media plays such an omnipresent part in all our lives, and children are no exception. And even more so in the last year and a half, children have spent more time on social media than probably we spent in the last 5 years, because obviously when you are at home, your default post time of school is social media.
It's
And
true.
social media, you share and you observe and you hear and see visually only positive successes, people traveling, people having a good time. You only see the best part of everyone's lives, and because nobody is sharing necessary negativity or stress, anxiety, and you only see those, so that becomes a reference point. So I think that's a
True.
really, really key part of your book, and obviously something that's really relevant for parents and children today. One of the things that I really take away from what you also shared is really, I think the responsibility we have as parents is to be good role models,
Hmm.
because when I look, I have two kids myself, and to me, this is the year, their foundation of what makes them as adults. The
Yeah.
people we become today. A lot of those reference points are because of anchors and experiences that we had as parents, or rather, we had as children. So to
Hmm.
me, whether it's letting your kids realize that, I mean, comparison is one point, judgment was another great point you mentioned. These are things we need to really live in awareness as a parent. It may be
Hmm.
our sort of triggers of ourselves, but whatever we're doing, saying, behaving, we are a role model for our children. So we need to definitely live in awareness and understand that whatever we say or do or behave, how we behave, has a direct impact on our children. So I think
Yes.
that's a responsibility we all hold. There are a couple of questions that have come in. One question is around vulnerability. So I
Uh-huh.
personally see vulnerability as a strength, and I talk of even the corporate world. And as parents for our children, we got to realize that it's okay to be vulnerable. What are your thoughts in the space of vulnerability as a strength as opposed to a weakness?
So vulnerability is a lot of the times, I guess, because of, say, I would relate it back to me. My generation of parents, grandparents, always believed in putting up a strong front, hiding any weaknesses or any issues, because society will judge us. So I think sharing vulnerabilities is something that's a more recent way of dealing with situations, because sharing enables us to understand that there are others out there who are experiencing the same vulnerabilities. And when you know there are others who are gripped with the same kind of whatever fear or self sabotaging behavior or anxiety or stresses, then it makes it easier to relate. And then we are open to learning and developing ourselves, because we know the other person knows exactly how I feel. So then sharing vulnerabilities is necessary. I would say in the corporate world, like you said, there are departments that have come up where people can talk about what's going on, how it's affecting their choices and decisions they're making in the workplace, or maybe their mental attitude towards work or their boss. Because a lot of the times the bosses can be quite aggressive. Then there are some kinds of people who are not able to deal with aggressive behavior. So addressing these kind of issues, talking about it, helps both the corporate culture as well as people to understand that yes, vulnerabilities is part of the human experience. I mean, we are perfect beings. As Kristen Neff, she's spoken about self-compassion in helping people with low self-esteem. And she says we are perfect as humans. It is our life experiences that are imperfect, and that is the whole human experience that we all share together. So vulnerabilities, I would say, is okay to share. Of course, you don't want to put yourself in a position where somebody takes advantage of your vulnerability. So, I mean, in every way, just be conscious of who you're sharing what to, because
Be
people
selective.
can take advantage of you.
Fantastic. No, so vulnerability is encouraged, but to some extent and very understandably, be selective in who you're being vulnerable with, so that they are able to uplift, encourage, inspire, give you an empathetic listening ear, but not take advantage of that. So
That's
thank you so
right.
much for that, Shobha. We have a
Yeah.
great question from Daniel Thadani. Good to hear you both. How much of real-time stress and downturns in life should be shared with your kids? A great question. Great question.
Great question, Mr. Thadani. It is a good question. It's a difficult question because when you think about real time stress, and when you're experiencing it, the anxiety and dealing with a lot of issues and problems and obstacles in your life, the vibe that you give out, kids pick up on it. So I think communicating with them that, look, I'm experiencing this at this point in time, and to a certain extent encourage them to ask questions, and then answer them as honestly and easily as possible, so that they can grasp that, yeah, okay, the adults in around me are experiencing stress, but now I understand why they're experiencing it and what it is and how long it's going to take for them to get through it. So downturns in life, yes, to an extent, yes, you can share to your children, but obviously you have to understand your child's personality and characteristics of that they don't dwell on it, they're not oversensitive, they may not, that it may not affect them negatively. So yes, it's a difficult choice to make, but I guess in the situation that you're in, addressing and talking to the children is best in a way that they ask the question and say, are you going through something? Am I to know about something? And then you can, tailor your answer based on what the child is capable of understanding and dealing with.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Thanks. One more question from our dear friend Prashant Menon. How would you approach the situation of being too reflective as a lack of a sense of urgency?
Mr. Menon, that means that I think you're talking about, is it self-reflection, like being in reflective as that, not dealing with the issue directly, that is urgent. I'm assuming that's what it is.
Yes, that resonates with me as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So when we self-reflect, we can function, um, as we self-reflect, we can function in dealing with, whatever it is that we have to deal with, in whatever urgent matter that needs. Um, how would you approach the situation of being too reflective as lack of a sense of urgency?
Perhaps procrastination, perhaps overthinking too much,
Overthinking, yeah.
not taking action as such because you're just in reflective mode all the time. Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. I understand now. So you mean like, one tends to be passive, one tends to be that, oh, there is this particular activity or task that needs to be completed by this particular time, and you're just kind of reflecting on it still, and you're maybe writing notes about it, but not actually doing the task. So so I guess the approach is to bite the bullet. I mean, you just write a few notes, make a few points, and then start doing that particular task that needs to be done. And if it requires more time and attention, then you take a step back. So, for example, I would share my journey as an author. If I have a deadline where I have to submit an article, but I feel that I don't want to write it, I'm wasting time, I'm doing other things because I find that writing that article a little bit challenging, then I would just write my notes, do my research in the morning, and then just start writing. Just put the points on paper, and then explore it and expand on it.
Great. No, thanks, Shobha. Our
Yeah.
mutual friend Sile O'Brien also says hi, Gautam and Shobha.
Hi, Siley. Hi, Sheila.
Fantastic, fantastic.
Yeah.
Great. On a lighter note, you know that I launched my book, Breaking Bread in the Lockdown, and I'd love to hear your insights and thoughts. What does breaking bread mean to you when you hear the term breaking bread?
Well, breaking bread, at first I was, like thinking about that traditional way in the UK where they break bread. But
Absolutely.
then I know, I mean, when I read your book, I said, amazing. This is a different perspective that I actually I was not aware of. Although, for whatever time I've been interacting with people, and we've met for coffees, or we've met for meals, or invited friends over, we've actually had built a relationship. And then I came to realize after reading your book that actually bonds are stronger, there are more connective conversations, there are better interactions, there's more positive feelings from when you sit together and have a meal together. So that's what breaking bread means to me. It's building relationships, forging new connections, and and it comes about so organically. You're sharing a meal, you're having a good time together, and these moments stay in your memories. So both the relationship tends to grow from there as well. So I would say that, yeah, I read your book twice, honestly, Gautam. It was really nice. It was insightful, and then also those affirmations that were shared. Also, quite a few of them relatable, and honestly, I do use them because I go from moments of self doubt to motivation. So then I need a little pep up, and then I read some of the affirmations. So yeah, breaking bread has been quite meaningful for me.
Fantastic. Thanks so much for sharing, Shobha. The affirmations part, I thank my dad because he really inspired me and my brother and our family from a very young age. That affirmations was very much an omnipresent part of our family culture and even a part of our professional career with our team. So thanks to my
Mhm.
dad, and obviously he was inspired by the queen of affirmations, the late Louise Hay, who'd
Oh
written
yes.
"You Can Heal Your Life." So that's where I
Mhm.
guess. He was inspired from. But it's been an absolute pleasure to have this meaningful conversation with you, Shobha, and break bread with you virtually. Your
Yes.
book,
Hopefully in real time in in
I look
some city.
I look forward to that. I mean, all being well, the world is moving to a better space, and all being well, come 2022, we'll have the opportunity to meet in person, which
Yes,
will be an absolute pleasure, and break bread and have a meal in person,
yes, yes.
which
I
is
look
very much
forward to
look
that.
forward.
We should do that.
Absolutely,
Yes.
likewise, likewise. So congratulations once again on your book, Reboot, Reflect, Revive. It's available at all leading bookstores and on Amazon online. So do get your copy and share that with your friends and family. Shobha, before we wrap up, anything you'd like to share in any closing comments?
Yes, I would like to share that I recently had a situation where I broke bread with Anita Dadlani, who's here, our mutual friend, and we forged a wonderful friendship, and we have been collaborating together. And she's amazing she's been taking care of all my digital assets and posts and social media. So absolutely wonderful connecting, and that's one example of breaking bread. So thank you.
Thanks once again, Shobha. It's been an absolute pleasure and privilege. I wish you continued success, not only of your book, but of your career as a coach. I know that you can add tremendous value. I encourage those watching this conversation we've had today to follow you on LinkedIn, get a copy of your book, and spread the word of mouth of the importance of building our self-esteem, starting with our role as parents, which is absolutely important for the future leaders of our nation. In that sense, the children are the future leaders of corporates, of entrepreneurship. So we need to really play a really important role as parents. So I do encourage you to sort of get the copy of your book and enjoy the benefits of that and applying that in your life. And for corporate leaders, the doors have been open to mental health and well-being. This book would definitely be tremendous value to the corporate leaders out there. Thank you once again, Shobha. It's been an absolute pleasure and privilege, and I wish you a good evening and God bless.
Thank you, Gautam. God bless you. Thank you very much.